Hello, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening to everyone. Thank you guys for hanging on to us. We had some fun technology issues, but we got it all ironed out, so we're all good to go, and we're happy to start today. So thank you guys for all hanging on, and we're really looking forward to a great meeting today, a great webinar today. My name is Paul Zickert. I'm a sales manager here at InEvent. Happy to be joined by Brett Little today, and I'll bring him on in just a second. Again, today is all about the hottest venues of 2024, and how really the right space can kind of boost your event ROI. It's probably a topic maybe not people always talk about all the time, but really should probably be something that you actually do look at and really try and take a good look at. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and bring on Brett, and Brett's going to tell us a little bit about himself. Brett, welcome.
Hi, thanks, Paul. Yes, as you said, my name's Brett Little, and I work for a company called Arup, which is a large multidisciplinary company. We do everything from sort of engineering, building bridges, to designing spaces, to environmental impacts, everything. So it's a huge company, and I lead a team within that company that's called People Movement. And as the name would suggest, we look at all different types of environments where people move in any kind of numbers. And so we look at where people interact in spaces, and how they interact in buildings, and how they interact at events. So this could be anything from a railway station to a sports stadium to a museum to a theatre to a on-street event. It could be anywhere really where there's a concentration of people, and we try to plan that space so that everybody has the best possible experience.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Brett. And Brett, how long have you been in the industry?
So about 27 years. I started out doing sort of more general transport planning, and then quickly sort of moved sideways into sort of people and pedestrians, and then further into buildings and stuff. So
Mhm.
25 odd years,
Yeah.
something like that.
So we'll say you have just a little bit of experience in the event.
Yeah, a smattering of experience. Yeah.
Just a little bit. Nice. Good. Well, thanks. Thanks again, and very happy to have you join us here today. All right. Well, let's go ahead and get into our first question, Brett, if we can. So the first one is really how can selecting the right venue really impact events ROI directly?
Yeah, so I think obviously the venue choice is very vital, and I think you can look at that at different levels. So you can look at it at the sort of macro level and the micro level. So looking at it in the sort of macro larger level, the revenue, so the venue's got to be the right stage for the artist. So it's got to be the right size. You don't want a huge venue half empty, and equally you don't want a small venue being overprescribed. So you want to try and get something that's fitting to the artist, or the type of show you're putting on. And also, it's got to be well connected, and in the right place so people can get to and from it. I think, venues get different reputations, and that's often based on how easy it is to get to. What's your experience like getting in? What's your experience like when you're in there? And what's your experience like getting home? And those sorts of things have little or no bearing on the quality of the actual artist or the show. It's about logistics and your experience as a person, how you feel treated. And I think then the other sort of thing at the more micro level is what rate of return can you get on your food and beverage, your merchandising, all those kind of things within the venue that can make money. And that's often where we get involved in looking at how people move around and circulate within a venue, and how easy it is to get from your seat to get a drink, or whatever. We look at a lot of half-time scenarios in sports where can you get from your seat to the bar and back within your 15 minutes in it for English football. And then also we look at things like queuing systems. So how long do you have to wait to get whatever it is you're getting, and how equitable is your service in order to get there? So the last thing you want to do is standing in a queue when the one next to you is moving quicker. So we look at all that type of thing, and all that sort of adds up to how you feel as a person when you leave that show or that event. And that can lead obviously to online reviews and reputational, sort of good or bad, really.
Yeah, yeah. What Brett, I've been to a couple different events, through my career, and And one of the things that I've kind of seen at times is sometimes you have this huge venue space, and then it's kind of just cordoned off, and like, there's pipe and drape or walls or something like that sectioning off, those types of things. But then when you go outside of it, there's lots of space open right from there. What do you feel about those kind of, because you mentioned that right at the beginning, what do you feel about like those types of scenarios, when those present themselves?
Yeah, I think it's all about balance. You don't want something that's too crowded so people don't have a good experience. But
Mm,
I think, like you say, if you have there's always there's often sort of seat kill in places you restrict seating, but there's also you don't want that sort of half empty stadium or half empty venue because it
yeah,
becomes a bit soulless. So
yeah.
yeah, it's about balance.
Yeah, it almost reminds me too of thinking, is it the chicken or the egg first, right? Sometimes I think maybe some of these events maybe don't necessarily know how many people are actually going to be coming to the event, right? So they book a space hoping that they're going to
Yeah,
have maximum capacity, and then when it doesn't happen, they need to adjust really quickly and figure it out as well, right?
yeah, yeah, which
Yeah,
is a difficult thing to do. Absolutely.
yeah, 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 absolutely. Especially if you're a new event, right? In the
Yeah.
out marketplace. Okay. All right. So second question is how does venue technology integration play a role in creating kind of a seamless event experience?
So yeah, I think as venues and as sort of our industry has developed over sort of the last 10, 15 years, technology has become a key part of pretty much every stage of your experience at a venue. So from our point of view, we look at people really from seat to stand. So we're looking at, from sort of home to their seat. So
Mm,
how is their journey right from leaving their house? And so that when you're leaving your house, you can start looking at technology in terms of public transport information, real time information, and not just linked to the transport providers themselves, but often events will have apps or the venue will have an app and things like that. So you can start to link into transport information to hopefully make your journey smoother to get to the venue in the first place. And then I think we look a lot at how people are screened and the security levels as you come through into a venue. So depending on what kind of sport or event will depend on what level of screening you have. And
mm,
obviously over the years, the technologies have changed there where even things, the metal detectors and things you walk through now, they're all getting quicker. There's new technologies that get people through quicker, so the wait times are less. So there's lots of different ways that process is trying to be sped up and smoothed out. And then once you're inside, we sort of mentioned before about getting a drink at half time, that kind of thing. There's lots of ways now you can at some venues you can pre-order your drinks. There's
mm,
order points around the stadium or wherever you can pre-order your drinks, and you just have a collection number and you go and get your drinks. So that speeds that process. And also there's different types of sort of serving technologies for drinks. So, for example, it's one that's used in stadiums quite a bit. Is called the bottom-up process, where you basically put your pint, your big, well, it's a plastic cup on the base, and it basically fills it from the bottom, which means it fills quicker. And it's more efficient that then the server can then go and do something else while that's serving, but also fills quicker rather than having to pour each drink individually. So those kind of technological advances really speed up those processes, which means that each person has a greater level of satisfaction because they're getting what they need, and obviously the operator is turning over more revenue as well.
yeah. I think I need to get one of those pint fillers for my house and figure
Yeah,
out how to do that in my house.
absolutely.
How great is that? So I'm going to actually point out a little example that I just had from this past weekend. So I was at a college football game this past weekend in Ohio, and it's a huge stadium, right? Holds over 100,000 people. And while I was waiting in one of the queues, I happened to see a little QR code over on the side, and it said, "Hey, want your food faster? Order directly from this QR code." Right?
Yeah,
And I thought, oh my gosh, that's kind of cool. Why would people actually wait in line, right, for their stuff when you can just do it on your mobile phone? Now,
yeah,
the only problem I had with that is the service, the cell service was not very good. In a huge open air arena like that, or stadium, that holds over 100,000 people. Obviously, there's tons of people that are going to be on their cell phones. so the service level wasn't very good in terms of
Right.
trying to get that. So that's the only thing that would combat people to not do that. At a venue like that. Question for you specifically, maybe on mobile apps, if you can. I think I saw like a quote years ago that said something to the fact of maybe 80 or 85% of the people never downloaded the mobile app for their event until they got off of the plane and they were on their way to their hotel and or the event itself.
Yeah. Yeah.
What do you think about that?
I think yeah, it's true. I think certainly some events. I went to a conference recently, and I think they specifically tried to put early information and stuff on that app to make you download it earlier. Because I'm guilty of that as well. You turn up to the
Hmm.
event and download it on the door.
Right.
But I think this conference I went to recently, I did download it a couple of weeks before because they all the changes in the locations, everything like that was all within the apps. They were trying to make you direct you that way. But yeah, the earlier you can engage with that sort of thing, the better. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah, yeah. Maybe there's a better opportunity to engage those people to get onto that mobile app faster because maybe they're missing this information or that information or something to get them kind of involved in the technology before they actually get to that
Yeah,
particular venue
I think
itself.
if you add travel information in there, that's got to help because if people want to look at their travel arrangements before they go, at least they might be downloading it the day before, maybe at
Yeah,
least.
yeah. I attended. I obviously being in the events industry here in the States, we end up going to Vegas quite often, and so I think I've hit most of the Vegas venues that have been out there. But over the past couple of years, I've attended this one event, and it's been at this venue, completely off the strip, completely off of everything. It was actually kind of a little hard
Mm.
to get to. I mean, you could Uber to it, but there was really no parking, and it was really hard to get to. And so it's I know a lot of people weren't necessarily so happy about it.
Mm.
Whereas you have something in Mandalay Bay, or you have something at Resorts World, or some of these other bigger places, and people can literally walk from their hotel room and directly into the venue itself, and that makes life a lot easier, right? So I
Yeah,
think that's pretty key when you're trying to pick out a particular venue
absolutely.
that makes the most sense. So good. Okay, so next question. What kind of we'll kind of switch gears a little bit here, but what kind of sustainable practices should venues adopt to meet, kind of the growing demands for eco-friendly events?
Again, I think there's different ways you can look at this. I think there's obvious things like becoming plastic free and paperless and recycling and those kind of elements, which are more to do with the operations of the venue, not so much perhaps with what the store stuff I look at. But within our world, in the sort of moving people around in the people movement world, the main consideration for us, and you touched on it just there, is about travel and transport and how people reach the venue itself. And obviously, we want to become sustainable. We need the venue to be public transport orientated and active travel orientated rather than car orientated. And this is obviously depends to an extent on what audience the show or the event is serving, whether they can travel by those modes. And obviously, then it also depends on what's available. In the UK, being a smaller country and close knit, we often venues are very central. There's normally good rail links, or in London you've got the tube and buses. So
Hmm.
generally speaking, we're pretty good. We're pretty sort of public transport led. But obviously, if you look at other venues, such as obviously if you're looking at sport and you're looking in the US for American football and tailgating and the other things like that, you've got a very much more a car led culture. You've got
Hmm.
huge car parks, and the tailgating is part of the day. It's part of the show. It's part of the event. So
Hmm.
you've got different challenges in different parts of the world. But certainly, from our perspective, that travel from your home to the venue is probably the main sustainability element that we consider.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, I think you can say yes. The people in the U.S. here, we definitely love our petroleum, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And if you've
uh,
got, I was going to say, sorry, if you're looking at even bigger events like mega events like the Olympics or something, then obviously then you might be providing fleet transport as well. So then you'd be looking
sure,
at electric fleets for your
Sure.
transport as well. So you can go up right up to that level as well.
Yeah, yeah. So I spent quite a bit of time in kind of the London area for work, and so I've got to see kind of the evolution of all the different kind of spaces that are there. And I remember the last time that I was there, I don't know if it was fully done or not, but I know that they had like an express train directly from Heathrow to Excel uh,
Mm.
to Excel. I don't know if they ever finished that or not, but I thought that was really unique to be able to have like basically an express train that went right from the major airport directly to the convention center and dropping you off right at the
Yeah,
convention center.
yeah.
So I mean that was really cool because I don't think I'd ever want to drive in London. I've, I've seen
Certainly
how
not.
taxi and
Yeah,
cab
from Heathrow
drivers
to the
drive
Excel.
there, and yeah, I don't think that's a bad idea for me for sure.
No, you're going right through the centre of London with that trip. I wouldn't want to do that. No.
Yeah, no. Very difficult to navigate some of those streets
Yeah.
and all the different areas for sure. So, okay. Well, what do you think too about kind of sustainability in terms of like, what about like the use of different materials maybe on the trade show floor? So, I thought I heard a stat from a really long time ago. I don't know how much this has changed, but you know, it was another again like 80% of like a lot of different backdrops or walls were literally just thrown into the trash. After an event was done, and I was like, "What do you mean?" I'm like, "They're not reusing these things." And actually, this
Mm.
was more out of the UK. And I said, "They're not reusing these things," and they said, "No." They said the problem is storage, right? Is then
Right.
where do we find storage for all this stuff to put it and house it, and then think about potentially reusing it again. So they ended up just throwing those things away. But what are your thoughts kind of around those types of sustainability efforts?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, yeah, it's a crying shame that happens. I mean, you would want to reuse that stuff as much as possible or have it in house. I know some venues have staging, lighting, and stuff that you take the venue and you take their kit as well so the kit stays in one place. And other times you have artists that bring all their stuff, but like you say, at conventions and things, if they have specific backdrops, then I guess it does become harder.
Yeah,
But yeah, it isn't obviously desirable. No.
yeah. I always feel like there's got to be a better way than that. I mean, I like that the European model is more kind of wall centered than the
Mm.
U.S. still has some like pipe and drape because those pipe and drapes are just it's time for those things to go. It's
Yeah, it probably is
they're
time.
definitely old looking for sure. So I like the wall. I like the wall system much better. So,
Yeah, yeah,
but I know a lot of general contractors have been trying to do that for years and trying to do a better job of that. So it's just a better look and feel for sure.
yeah, yeah.
Next question is for you. So, how can venues improve accessibility and inclusivity? Oh my gosh, that's a tough word today for me.
Yeah,
To cater to diverse audiences.
yeah. It's an I mean, there's many different ways. Again, for us, we look a lot around access and how people get into venues. So, um, people with reduced mobility, PRMs as we call them, we
Hmm.
have to consider them in terms of access to make sure that everybody has the same experience going into a venue. So you don't want that awful situation where the lifts are 3 miles away but the stairs are right in front of you. It's got to be an equitable experience for all,
Yeah.
and the same with going through security and things like that. You have to have different lanes for people with wheelchairs, or maybe they're accompanied by somebody, or those kind of things. So you need to allow more space, and you need to consider that space going through, so those anybody with any kind of restriction doesn't feel like they're getting a sort of second class deal. And in terms of the way, say in a concert, you'd have viewing areas for people with restricted mobility again. So if it's wheelchair access, or again just people with accompanying people. So those are very much the kind of very maybe more visible, sort of physical restrictions. But something we're starting to look at more now is looking at people from different demographics and different sort of neurodiversity as well. And recently, we've linked up with the University College of London to look using their Pearl facility, which is an acronym, and I can't remember all the letters now. But
Hmm.
essentially, it's a big facility, huge warehouse that within it you can then mock up different layouts. When I was there, it was an art gallery, and then you put people in there, and they've all got a QR code, and they're tracked around this facility. But they've also given information previously about their age and demographics and things like that. So you can start to see how different people react to space, how they react to each other. You know, I'm 6'2", so I'm going to be a little bit different to somebody who's 5 foot something. You know, how different people walk and how they use space. And what we're hoping is that from this research, and some great work gone down there with Professor Hugo Spears and others, that this will lead to a better understanding of how people with different demographics and neuro sort of diversity,
Hmm.
how they cope with space, so that then, especially in the venues and culture world, we can start to design a bit more holistically.
Hmm.
So it's an ongoing piece of research, and it's something that we're just delving into right now. But we're hoping that it will sort of give us some real insights into how different people behave.
Yeah, that's great. What's the time frame of they're trying to finish that?
It's a first stepping stone in many, so I wouldn't like to put a time on
Oh,
it.
got it.
It's
Yeah, yeah.
long term
Okay.
research, but we're
Okay.
hoping we can get some quick wins and some quick sort of insights
Yeah.
up front, and the research will carry on probably for years.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. That's great. Yeah, that's yeah, I don't think I've ever seen anything like that before, so that should be some really good insights out of that, for
It's
sure.
quite it was an interesting experiment because they put a number of people in this environment, and then they said to them, right, all gather in the middle, and then they had an envelope to open, and that had instructions about which painting
Huh.
to go see in which order. And you could just see how different people reacted to these instructions, and it was
Huh.
all filmed overhead and then tracked and everything. So
Interesting.
yeah, fascinating to see, and hopefully it can sort of give us a better knowledge of how different people react.
That's cool. That's cool. Well, cool. Well, good for you guys on doing that research. So, yeah, anything new like that is going to be good for the industry for sure.
Absolutely.
Good. All right, so let's get to our one of our last questions here. So, are there emerging types of venues or spaces, that you would predict that would become kind of, really popular, for events, coming up in 2025 and beyond?
Yeah, I think there's a number of trends, and I think we've touched on a few of them already. Um, I think sustainability is going to continue to be, to gain importance. It's been a consideration, but I think it's sort of rising to the top of the list, and more sustainable. It's not just about venues being sustainable, but I think that will attract people who believe in that sort of way of life. Digital sort of digital technology, both in terms of we mentioned apps and things like that, but also digital in terms of immersive experience and those kind of different types of shows you can get now. That you
Hmm.
can have all sorts of light shows and sound shows and everything else. So I think those technologies will push on as well. And the versatility, I think, is a key thing. I think a lot of times, 10, 20 years ago, places were built just for one purpose, and that's that. And now I think we in the UK we've looked at several football stadiums in terms of can they be used for concerts and that kind of thing. So if things can be either built or built in such a way or designed or operated in a way that they can be versatile and used for different uses, so then it's obviously got to help keeping that place busy, keeping it booked, and turning over revenue. And then, as we already sort of mentioned, accessibility and inclusion. So
Hmm.
not just the standards of accessibility that we talked about, having space for people, but that inclusion of everybody with different types of needs.
Yeah.
So for us, as a sort of people movement experts, in terms, public transport is going to be a key thing, and how you interact with, how far away the station is, and how you walk there, and safety and comfort while you do that. More travel information and things within digital apps. Um, and even the venue versatility gives us more to think about as well, because even a music venue that has 10 different bands on will have different demographics and different audiences for those bands, and sometimes different bands if they're more family orientated or more single young male orientated, they'll attract different type of people, and they'll have different uses and different sort of pulls on the bar and things like that. Yeah, and then overall, I think inclusivity runs through everything we do, and just making sure that everybody has a seamless experience and everyone has the same quality of experience.
Yeah. What do you think about first of all, you had mentioned about immersive experiences, so I think that's kind of key, especially in some of the different events, at least that I attend. Right, like I was recently in Milwaukee this summer, and they had a drone show. Right, that seems to be the
Mm,
big thing in these days. Right, instead of doing fireworks, you do a drone show. Right, and it's pretty fun, and it's a good experience, and people want to see it. Right, because it's still new and really
yeah,
fresh for people to see it. But what do you think too about like different types of venues, right? Maybe not just like a big box type of a convention center, but maybe more of a unique experience in a different type of venue. So I'll give you an example. So in London one time, I was attending an event, and it was at an old brewery, right? And so it was really kind of unique. Like the walls were unique, and kind of the layout was kind of funky and
mm,
different. But it ended up bringing to me. It felt like really kind of a really nice sense of community because it was a little bit more enclosed, and it brought people really close together. Right, you're really tight with kind of your neighbors and all the people in there. What do you think? What do you think about those, like those kind of unique kind of areas versus like the big box kind of convention centers?
yeah, and I think I like those little venues as well. I think there's nothing like it, especially something like a brewery or something tucked away. I think it's important to keep those small venues as well. I mean, I think a lot of those places are opened up and outside space might be added, and they always want to push numbers up to try and get people through. But I think there is an argument to try and retain some of that uniqueness and some of that kind of individuality with those smaller venues. It's not always possible, but yeah,
Hmm.
I think there's space for all types. But I wouldn't want to lose those quirky little venues, especially in central
Yeah,
London or somewhere like that. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. Okay, so just a reminder for everyone, if you have questions, feel free to go ahead and ask those questions on that little icon on the top right. Brett, I'm going to ask you one more question here just because it had to do with our last poll question. I think it ties in kind of nicely.
Mm,
So, what would be the advice that you kind of have for planners, that maybe are working on that limited budget, right? Since budget came up on our
yeah.
last poll question, maybe they have, hey, this is it, this is what I've got for my budget. How do I maximize everything to get the most impact for my events, for that specific venue.
Yeah. I think one of the things I'd say there is just keep things simple, because I think there's nothing people will remember having a bad time at an event. It's very easy to remember having a bad time.
Hmm.
But I think if you keep things simple, if you keep if you've got a limited budget, so you have a limited food choices or limited whatever. Again, as long as you do it well, you can do it simply. And I think I would say, given what I do for a living, don't scrimp on the sort of organisation and keeping people moving and circulating and happy.
Hmm.
But you can perhaps reduce the options and choice a little bit, because I think we'd all rather have have 15 minutes to be able to go and get something to eat and get back to our seat. It's fine if there was only three options when I got there, but if I got there and I couldn't get to the front of the queue,
Yeah,
I've had a bad experience, and then that leads to a bad review. So yeah, I think I would just say keep it simple, and make sure people have a comfortable, even if you cut a few of the perhaps in inverted commas luxuries out.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, good. All right, last call for any other questions or comments. Uh, Thank you guys for those, and thank you for answering those poll questions. So good. Well, Brett, well, thank you very much. I appreciate your time today and answering these questions. Very insightful. And hopefully, again, as I say on all the webinars that we have, that hopefully people walk away with one or two things of information that they can take away with them and potentially utilize at their particular events. So appreciate the time and appreciate everyone too for hanging on to the line at the beginning as we had a little delayed start, but we finally got going. So appreciate you guys waiting in on that as well. So once again, thank you for everyone for joining. We appreciate you coming to all these InEvent webinars, and hope you look forward to the next few that will be coming out over the next few months. So thanks again, and have a great day, everyone.
Thanks, Paul. Thank you.